Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the world of Raceface.Pro. Welcome to the final round, folks. This is it for the Raceface.Pro GT3 iRacing Sprint Series here in our Pro Division. We are in for an absolute treat, and you do not want to miss it because it's going to get a bit wild. It's going to get a bit crazy. So much can happen, and we've got qualifying underway to go and really rock and roll at the moment. Now, we've got to bring up a couple of little caveats that are going to be happening during the course of this race, and that is the championship. It's 80 minutes worth of racing, which you can do on one tank if you really look after it. But there is a mandatory pit stop for tires. That's where it's going to get a little bit more interesting. Wolfgang Weiss, currently leading out the top of the charts, is on 521 points. Luke Lucchese on 502. Ryan Otten's on 488. Ryan Otten's looking to jump into that top three. Sean Stradham lying in fourth place, followed by Troy Dolenchik, John-Jans van Rensburg. We've got Yuri Umpi-Swart, Paul Herber, and ninth is Alex Moore, followed by Luca Logovic, Noah Hendricks, Mark Heron, René Dresner, Florian Keller, Yasami, Werner Swart, Nal Bouillon, Peter Meyer in 18th. 19th is Yalaman Price, Ricardo Rivera, Jacques Vermillion, Willem Buerta, Byron Mitchell, Raymond Duggan, and the list goes on and on and on. And Julian Familiaris in 25th position. So, what we're going to be witnessing here tonight, folks, is a race of attrition. So this is an 80-minute race, which is a lot longer than what our 30-minute heat races are. Now you've got to keep it consistent right the way through. And drivers are going to have to really look at where things are going to improve, what they're going to have to do to stay at the top of the order. So, Luka Logovic is out on the track. Sean Stradham, Byron Mitchell, Raymond Duggan, Jason Coetzee, Yuri Umpi-Swart, Yasami, Paul Herber, Cameron de Bastos, Troy Dolenchik, Ryan Ottens, Jan Price, Wolfgang Weiss, Jeff Hancock, Jean-Jans van Rensburg, Werner Swart, Noah Hendricks, and Luke Lucchese will be racing this evening. But there is a massive caveat, because if we bring up our weather coming in, it's cloudy. And we're going to be dealing with that. But as well, we will be dealing with the absolute problem of a 69% chance of rain that may come down on us in the middle or the early start of the race. We're going to have to switch to rain tires. Now that is going to go and challenge drivers on when are they going to get into the pits, what sort of tires they're going to take out, and how they're going to be able to get this climb. I mean, there's so many little factors that have to be looked into, and who's going to be able to get the run. Now, there's been lots of discussions down in the pits of what cars are able to sustain themselves in the wet conditions. Audi saying they're a little bit tricky to drive, require a little bit more of a tentative throttle approach. Then you have got the likes of your Porsches, very stable in the rain, but take a hammering in the dry. The Lamborghinis, also a problem car that the drivers are going to have to deal and try and make their way around. So everyone now looking to try and see what's going to be that climb, what car is going to work out for them, and as they build up to it all. Let's go back to our previous race where we saw Troy Dolan, we saw the likes of Yuri Umpi-Swart having a bit of a come together, lands into the dirt and landed up with a heap of damage to them on the way through. So drivers now trying to put in their first lap and try and get some times out on the board as we had to come through. Wolfgang Weiss starting out with an absolute blazer of a 2:05. Troy Dolenchik in second place. Jason Coetzee and Luka Logovic now running a little bit further down. Yuri Umpi-Swart puts himself all the way to top of the order. Yasami getting a time in. Luke Lucchese getting a time in. As drivers now starting to get that pace, but a 2:03 has been set by Yuri Umpi-Swart. We've seen a 2:02 in practice, and that is what the drivers are going to be acing for at this point. Who's going to be able to get that climb? What are they going to be able to do? And how is it all going to run through it all? I mean, there's little moments to this that are going to just change things up and can land up with a few little problems coming into play. So the drivers are going to have to be very, very cautious on their approach, how they're going to be able to do it, and where they're going to really make their run to it. So we'll have to keep an eye at that. But so far, Wolfgang Weiss doing a fantastic time out on circuit. Will have to push himself. Yuri Umpi-Swart will be following suit, trying to pace himself out there, do everything he can to be a part of it, and see where he comes up with a climb on the way through. So definitely some tough times out there are going to be towards the drivers looking to step it up here tonight for the Raceface.Pro iRacing GT3 Sprint Series, the final round of the season, and they are looking to really send it to the moon and knock off some great times. The only couple of drivers that have yet to set a time, Noah Hendricks, Paul Gerber, Jeff Hancock, and Jan Price and Cameron DeBas are still waiting in the pits, preferring to start at the back, being a little bit more tentative with the weather and the track conditions. Now, Sebring, beautiful circuit, also known as the American version of Le Mans, where it was actually meant to be the American version of Le Mans, where the drivers go and push themselves out a little bit further. It also becomes a little bit of a difficult time, being an Air Force base, well, previous Air Force base, built by a swamp. If you go down the back straight, you will actually have a swamp on the left-hand side that you can go and take a look. Trust me, a couple of guys have gone looking for the likes of Shrek, couldn't quite find it out there. But this track is majority concrete versus the likes of a tarred circuit, which means the way that the cars interact with the surface is a little bit different. Now, tar on iRacing has a little bit more bumps, a little bit more ridges that dig into the tires, and you can find grips. But when it rains, it tends to fill up in between those ridges. Now, on concrete, it's flat. It is flat. It's not polished smooth, but it is flat, which becomes a little bit more slippery out there, and the drivers are all going to have to be aware of that approach. So, lots of pressure going on to Wolfgang Weiss at the moment as he looks to try and take the championship here tonight for the final round. He's got to keep ahead of Luke Lucchese, Ryan Ottens as they fight it out. Sean Stratham and Troy Donalczyk running in 4th and 5th. They've got a little bit of time to be had, but with an 80-point round, this is make or break for many of the championships, and all the pressure lies on this very car, the NJB, who are looking to really step up the game and push themselves out a little bit more forward. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, get ready as Jurien Pissoir still leading out the pack at 2:03, wasn't able to beat it out last time. And Wolfgang Weiss, as we see Jurien Pissoir completely losing it off the track. Wolfgang Weiss, Troy Donalczyk trying to get a little bit more pace. He's out in the Lamborghini, the screaming V10, hoping to make a little bit of an impact on the Porsche ahead. Byron Mitchell also trying to push it a little bit more. Been having some rough moments in his races, along with Troy Donalczyk not able to be at all the races. Jason Coetzee, who landed up in a few bits of contact. He's out there trying to give it all everything he's got as they come across the line. As Jason Coetzee got enough? No, not enough to move him up. Luke Lucchese, Paul Gerber, all going and waiting in the pits. They've decided they've done it all. The Altered Carbon Racing, though, of Werner Swart on that climb, improving steadily but surely as he makes his way through. Sean Stratham comes across and is now going to be returning to pits. Mr. van Rensburg from Team Slowpokes is out on circuit, going and pushing himself a little bit harder. Wants to move up into that top 5. He got close to it in the previous race, but now it's time to do it all over again. But once again, we've got to reiterate, this is a very, very long race. This is 80 minutes behind the wheel. This is a long time. An hour and 20 minutes is never an easy thing to go through, and drivers are going to have to really think on what is the game plan here. When are you going to get into the pits? Instead of the 30 minutes where you can run it to the end, now you're going to have to take a bit of a consideration of what you're aiming to do. Where's the fuel going to be? What are your plans to get in the pits? If the conditions are changing, which we are expected to have a light rainstorm coming very, very shortly. You can see the clouds starting to build up on the distance, and that is going to change how this race goes. Who's going to be able to get that climb ultimately for the final round, the 80 minutes of the Raceface.Pro iRacing GT3 Sprint Series, and being the very first one of the GT3s going and coming and having a great blast. Well, it's great to see it in the very first 80 minute that we're running in the Sprint Series. So Let's take a look at our grid, though, and go through it. Jurien Piswart, followed by Wolfgang Weiss, Troy Dolanczyk in third place, followed by Byron Mitchell, Jason Coetzee, Luke Lucchesi, Paul Gerber, Yas Amai, John Jans van Rensburg, Werner Swart, Sean Schradam, and Ryan Ottens will be fighting it out. A little bit further down, though, we have got Luka Logovic, Noah Hendricks, Raymond Duggan, Jeff Hancock, Cameron de Bastos, and Janneman Price rounding out the back of the grid. Not ideal circumstances if everyone gets a fantastic jump off a line. It will work if you're trying to avoid a bit of contact. Now, this is where it's going to get interesting and something we got to keep an eye out on tire compounds. We will see either dry tires come into play, or we will see the likes of wet tires be the main forte to it all. Depending on the weather, depending on the time, how is this going to work? Drivers are taking note. Lots of dry tires being put in. We go to our weather report, though. It has gone up to 70%, so we will see a good couple of laps in the dry before we have a light bucket down of rain on a 30-degree circuit. You're going to have to try and survive it out on slicks. If you do go for for wet tires, and it doesn't work out in your favor, because when it dries up, those tires fall off a cliff faster than you can believe. And a lot of drivers are going to have to keep that well in mind for the race. Who's going to be able to get the climb? Who's going to be able to get that movement? We are going to find out, ladies and gentlemen, as we get ready to rock and roll for our final round of the season here at Raceface.Pro for the race of a century. This is our closing for the 2024 iRacing Pro GT3 Sprint Series. This is it. We will have our endurance race coming up on the 7th of November, but in terms of a sprint race and all-out chase, this is it. This is all we got. The drivers are going to have to be well aware of it. So Jurien Piswart, Troy Dolanczyk, Byron Mitchell, Wolfgang Weiss, all getting themselves ready, and the pressure starting to mount. This is gonna be a monumental charge and lots of pressure being put on the NJB driver of Wolfgang Weiss to score the championship here and see where he's going to be able to get his way through. So let's see. Drivers making their way through, trying to get a bit of an understanding of where everything is. And Jurien Piswart will be leading out the pack to start off his run. Get a little bit more momentum off the start of the race. Troy Dolanczyk in second place will have a good go around and try and move his way through. So a bit of a busy top 5. Luke Lucchesi going to play more of a patient game on this run and think about what needs to be done for his run. He's currently 3rd in the championship. He can score valuable points that can help him all the way through, but he cannot afford to get a knock on these cars. There is a multitude of spares out in the pit lane that drivers and teams have access to that can go and get the cars all sorted out and get themselves racing once again. Another driver to keep an eye out for, Ryan Ottens, who's a little bit further down the field. Keep an eye out on him. Showed great performance and great momentum in the previous race. He's hoping to do it all over again. And lights being flashed by Byron Mitchell, who is just going and letting everyone know, listen, we're coming back at you as fast as you can. Janneman Price and Cameron de Bastos getting themselves ready as they try and line themselves up. And the THT colors now joining up with Onyus Gaming. We have seen teams come and go throughout the season, new teams formulated, but there can only be one champion for the Raceface.Pro iRacing GT3 Sprint Series for our Pro Division, and all eyes look towards our top 3 drivers in the championship. Wolfgang Weiss, Luke Lucchesi in second place, and Ryan Ottens in third. Each have an opportunity to win the race, to win the championship, to call themselves the final champion for 2024. And it comes down to this. Jurien Piswart, Wolfgang Weiss, all gonna have a go. Troy Dolanczyk getting himself lined up, tucked up right underneath that McLaren's rear wing, looking to try and force away pass. Wolfgang Weiss on the top row. Lying in second place will be on the outside for turn 1, the long left-hander. The drivers are going to have to find as much grip as they can. They weaving, they braking, they brake drag. They are creating as much heat into these tires as physically possible to just get the jump. It is all on the line, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls around the world. Hype yourselves up, get excited for this, because we will be going racing. Safety car lights are off, safety car going in, and now it is time to go racing. Lined up side by side they go, and it's Jurien Pissoir and Wolfgang Weiss. Lights on, and we're away. We racing with Jurien Pissoir getting a little bit of help from the likes of Troy Dolenchik, but Wolfgang Weiss is going to have a good go around him, and immediately looking 3 wide through as Wolfgang Weiss loses out a bit of momentum. Jurien Pissoir loses the drive, and Troy Dolenchik launches himself into first place. Jurien Pissoir trying to look around the outside, and now Jason Coetzee up on the inside of Wolfgang Weiss. A little bit of contact between the two, and he's able to pull it back just at this moment. He's a little bit further down. That is going to feed him into Byron Mitchell. Quick flash of the lights here saying, all right, I'm not quite happy about that one. But Byron Mitchell has his eyes firmly set on the run. Luke Lucchese battling out. It's got Paul Herber onto the back of him as the train gets very busy once again. And Wolfgang Weiss, a huge send to try and get past Byron Mitchell, has Luke Lucchese on his tail, who gets fouled up. And Paul Herber losing out the drive. Suddenly has Sean Stratham up on the inside onto the anchors, doing everything he can. Still side by side they go. The Audi is monstrous on the brakes, but can he keep it all together? A little bit of rubbing between the two, but ultimately all going well. But Yaz Samai going and capitalizing on the moment, dives up on the inside, trying to get the pass done. Noah Hendricks going and trying to support his teammate, but Ryan Ottens goes for the pass, gets it hooked in, and tries to go also launching by. That lost out Noah Hendricks a bit of time. Luka Logovic going and capitalizing on the pace. Out in front though, Troy Dolenchik, Jurien Pissoir, and Jason Coetzee chasing each other down. Byron Mitchell keeping it of Wolfgang Weiss. Luke Lucchese feeling a lot of pressure to get past Wolfgang Weiss as they fight it out for the championship. And this is 80 minutes of racing. This is 1 hour and 20 minutes, one mandatory pit stop, and drivers are going to have to think their way through here, start communicating with their teammates. But Luke Lucchese trying to defend that inside line. Wolfgang Weiss stuck on the outside, trying to sweep across the nose, just gets across the nose and was able to keep on the power. So Wolfgang now doing everything he can to just break away as they look to complete a lap here and have an absolute run. 2:07 has been the time set. Sean Stratham trying to get onto the toes. Got Paul Herber, Yasamai, Ryan Ottens. This train starting to become a little bit more together. The drivers are starting to get there a little bit more of a workout. But there is a couple of drivers, unfortunately, losing out. Jeff Hancock's is going and circulating. He started from pit lane and now having a rough time. And Van Rensburg was not able to start the race. So that is unfortunate. John Jans van Rensburg, unfortunately, out of the running. And something has just gone desperately wrong with that car. I mean, this is going to be a huge, huge, huge run. I mean, we're going to have to see how this works at the moment and how the drivers are going to go. What is the tires going to look like? What is the weather going to look like? And at the moment, Jurien Pissoir is looking at the back of that ship saying, I don't want to have it. I want to get past. As we jump on board with the likes of the McLaren staring at the back of the ship, really trying to nail it up towards the inside line, utilizing as much of the power as possible that is underneath him. The McLaren getting a huge, huge run. And you can see the clouds in the distance becoming a little bit more ominous. The drivers are going to have to really think, what is the game plan here? They're going to be starting to communicate with their pits and say, okay, what is the weather looking like? How is this going to go? As we jump on board with Yaz Samai in the Audi, trying to get a little bit more momentum right behind Paul Herber. Paul going and dropping the wheel on the dirt. That's compromised his drive though. Down the straight they go. Yaz Samai has an option here. Keeps in the slipstream, pulls out a little bit early. Has he got enough in the tank to really get the drive as they go side by side, heading towards the final corner? It's going to be late on the anchors, and he's able to do it. That forces Paul Herber out wide. He has to try and bring the brakes back. He's still trying to keep it side by side, and unfortunately too close to the wall. goes and loses out the drive, and suddenly Ryan Otten's having a good go at him. Looks towards the inside line, backed out of it, couldn't really go for the race there. Has to wait it out yet another lap. So now it is Paul Gerber back onto Yasomai as they fight it out for 8th, fighting out for 8th, 9th, and 10th position. And Ryan Otten's with that monster send, tries to get round, couldn't quite do it around the outside. Going to have to wait very patiently as it's a little bit pedestrian here to get the momentum, then get back onto the power, onto the toe. Ryan Otten's going after Paul Gerber as fast as possible and really keeping onto the back of that team try-hard. Paul Gerber is going to have to keep an eye open as Ryan Otten's lines up on the outside. Who's later on the brakes as he gets to the cones? Third cone, brake as hard as he can, down the gears. Really start snaking away through the S. Couldn't quite get the pass done. Paul Gerber living another day at the moment. Ryan Otten's getting swallowed up a little bit as Luka Logovic is starting to close up the gap, and Werner Swart out in the Mustang is now closing at a rate of knots for the Altered Carbon Racing. A beautiful shot of that Black Panther really starting to look to pounce on the prey and see where it all can work out as they get the drive all the way through. Now it's going to be close on the braking. Werner Swart trying to do everything he can, and Luka Logovic really battles to keep it all in check. Ryan Otten's going after Paul Gerber, trying to chase him down, and Paul Gerber just keeping on the momentum. Yeah, Samai just a little bit ahead of him, and a lot of these drivers were going and counting on this dry rain here in the Pro Server to ensure that they can keep going. And with only 5 minutes gone, tyres will be taking a bit of strain here as everyone's looking to push the boundaries just that little bit more. Who's going to be able to get the run? Well, Ryan Otten's going to have a go at Paul Gerber, and also it does look like Werner Swart's going to have a bit of a go side by side. Paul defends the inside line, forces Ryan Otten's out very, very wide, compromises his drive, and Luka Logovic losing out the momentum as well as Werner Swart carries a lot of momentum through and now looks to close down. Ryan Otten's going to come back around the outside. Werner Swart going to follow in tow though, and just ahead of them, Sean Stratham onto the back of Luke Lucchesi, but Ryan Otten's going around the outside once again, trying to get the power, and does get ahead of Paul Gerber, but that has eaten him up to the likes of Werner Swart and Luka Logovic, making quite a big train to deal with as they fight it out once again. Hard on the brakes, Luka Logovic trying everything he can to just get that little bit of momentum, get that push forward, and stay within the fight. This is going to be a challenging time indeed. Looking on the outside though, Werner Swart going after Paul Gerber, going to go late on the anchors. Can he get it back? Not quite under the running there. So out in front is Troy Dolenchik, leading out the pack. Jason Coetzee in second, Yuri M. Swart in third, Byron Mitchell in fourth place, and Wolfgang Weiss down in fifth, who is right ahead of his championship rival Luke Lucchesi at the moment. And with being so close to one another, Luke Lucchesi has an opportunity here tonight to usurp the championship and take it away from Wolfgang Weiss. Wolfgang, though, is looking to take the South African championship home. He wants to go to Austria and say, guess what? I got it here for NJB, the South African championship. And that is going to be a huge, huge impact in the world of iRacing. Luke Lucchesi having a go. Sean Stratham and Yaz Samai pushing each other along, trying to really close up that gap, really clawing away at it. Ryan Ottens is now trying to make his way through, and that is Van Rensburg, who's rejoined the circuit. So Van Rensburg back on the track, is a blue flag, waiting for his opportunity. He was able to rejoin. Thankfully, that is great to see. Not that good to see a driver going in out that way. Paul Gerber under pressure as the Mustang GT3 of Werner Swart trying to go around the outside, a little bit late on the brakes, try and carry a lot of momentum through. Second guessed it though, and rather tried tucking back into the toe of Paul Gerber, who carries a lot of momentum. You can see how far Werner Swart trying to throw the Mustang out. Once again, the outside line. Paul Gerber defends the middle of the circuit, and that has allowed Luka Logovic to get right back into the fray. And Noah Hendricks is back in for the fight as well. So Noah Hendricks is going to have a good go here. Luka Logovic, though, trying to look around the Mustang. Can't really get the pass done and dusted as they go and battle their way through. Paul Gerber getting a terrible exit. Is going to have a little bit of a suffering situation. Werner Swart defending the inside line. He's going to go late under the brakes, and Luka tries to get past, but that slowed him up. Noah Hendricks capitalizing on the moment, tried his luck through the race. Couldn't quite get it all booked in, and this is going to be a bit of a challenge for the way through. I do want to point out though, Van Rensburg is the only car on wet tires, and it's a very, very dry circuit at the moment for our drivers. 70% still, and no rain at the moment, so those tires are going to be blistering at a rate of knots. Luke Lucchesi onto the back of his championship rival, seeing where he can make up that little bit of ground. Unfortunately, just staying a little bit ahead and allowing to open up the gap just a fraction. But this little train here, Werner Swart, Luka Logovic, Noah Hendricks still giving a huge chase between one another, really battling it out with Werner Swart, managing to just get a little bit more momentum, and Luka Logovic trying to get the car all put together. Suddenly has Noah Hendricks looking up on the inside. Noah Hendricks is going to have the drive though. Can he get the moment? Can he capture it into the toes? We jump on board with the Ferrari 296 as he closes off, and a beautiful, beautiful writing on the back of Luka Logovic's car. If you could see this back off, and that is because it's getting way too close for comfort. And as Noah Hendricks going and hearing to that a little bit, but unfortunately Werner Swart clipping the wall, that cost him a bit of time. Now suddenly has Luka Logovic coming back at him once again, having a good show at it. And now a little bit further down though, oh never mind, as we see Luka Logovic, big look on the inside, Werner Swart gets past, and now tries to get the momentum. Werner Swart trying to come back and loses out. Noah Hendricks fishtailing all over the show, trying to find that little bit of grip, trying to get that little bit of momentum as they fight their way through, having a great time out there and pushing as hard as they can to make up a little bit of momentum. Another little fight going on though. Wolfgang Weiss opening up the gap to Luke Lucchesi at the moment. Sean Strader dealing with Yaz Semai constantly on his tail, going and nipping at the heels, trying to make his way through and see where it all comes into check. And Ryan Otten's a little bit further back. Paul Herber trying to keep the momentum at the moment. He sees Luka Logovic, Werner Swart and Noah Hendricks all keeping each other busy. Raymond Duggan is down into 14th. 15th place, Cameron Bastos trying to make up some time with Janeman Price hanging on the back of him. Jeff Hancock's trying to close up on the rest of the field in Van Rensburg, still keeping some momentum out there to just get it to the line for the Team Slowpokes Racing. So now Troy Donalczyk, Jason Petit doing everything they can to battle it out. Uriel Biswat, Byron Mitchell going and fighting his way through. Wolfgang Weiss trying to close up that gap. And remember, we still have plenty of time in this race to start trying to consider of what the fueling is going to look like for a lot of these drivers. What are their tire strategies? Now, you can go a full 80 minutes on a tank if you drive nicely, but you need to do a mandatory pit stop to get your tires changed. When are you going to do it? How far in the race are you going to do it? Now, let's take a look back to our Raceface.Pro GT3 Sprint Series in iRacing, the Raceface.Pro Poker Bet GT3 Sprint Series, and the iRacing, the ACC, and also on the Thursday night. They can go right down and tend to go in two parts, the 45 minutes and the 18 minutes. That is roughly where the pit stops tend to work in the favor, and where drivers tend to be a little bit more comfortable. For those that are looking to bottom out the tank, get the cars changed, get everything, and get racing again, well, they're going to have to be very cautious on their approach. A little bit of a close racing though. Byron Mitchell getting sucked in by Wolfgang Weiss, and now has to deal with Wolfgang in the Porsche, going and battling out, and this is going to help out Luke Lucchesi to close up that gap little by little at the moment. And Byron Mitchell critically needs to hold on to that fourth place for the likes of Luke Lucchesi. He needs to be on the back of Wolfgang Weiss throughout this race. He needs to finish in first place. If Luke Lucchesi gets a win here tonight, he ultimately takes that championship hands down. You can't argue with it. That's that done and dusted. Great stuff, but he's going to have to be well aware of the situation on that. Wolfgang Weiss, on the other hand, just has to stay ahead of Luke Lucchesi, and he takes the championship. He will usurp Luke Lucchesi out of the championship on the running through. So let's see how this is all going to turn out as time starts to tick away and the consideration comes through. So NJB will be going and talking. Durant Motorsports will also be talking, along with RDSA, Pantera Esports of Luke Lucchesi will be chatting to one another. Two cars, though, that are not afraid to go and share, or three cars that aren't afraid to share, but Troy Donalczyk and the likes of Jason could see and Yuri on P1. We've seen these three cars all battle it out in sheer pain once before. They're not going to do it again. Byron Mitchell keeping a very tight inside line. Wolfgang Weiss trying to go around the outside. Can't really get the momentum. Really gets on the gas. Looks for the inside. Can't get that pass down and dust his head. Carrying a lot of pace through. Going to have to be very cautious on this one as he gets into the toe. Looks for the inside. Second guesses it. Waited out through the long left-hander. He's going to try and get underneath him for the apex. Couldn't quite get it sorted out, and that Porsche is going to have to be a little bit more settled at the moment to just deal with the Audi of Byron Mitchell just ahead of him as they fight their way through. Byron Mitchell going and moving left to right, snapping around constantly at the back of the heels, doing everything he can to just keep that little bit of momentum. And at the moment, Wolfgang Weiss is battling, running a little bit of a conservative approach through some of the corners. Whether that is just the difference and bravery of later on the brakes, or whether he's trying to save the tyres a little bit longer towards the end of the race and do a quick in and out of the pit. There's so many different factors that can be pulled out at the moment of the pit stops, and the only ones that have done the pit stops at the moment has to be Van Rensburg, and I would also, I don't think Jeff Hancock's has done a pit as yet, and that is going to be something we going to have to keep an eye out for. Looking at it, Jeff Hancock started in the pits, so that doesn't count as his pit stop. The only car that has done a pit stop though is going to be from Rensburg, who are going to fight it out on the way through. So we do have our virtual grandstands absolutely packed. Glad to see you guys here. Fantastic stuff. Caleb Mauer giving a big shout out there. Also NJB Nas going and saying get the championship for NJB. The celebrations out there. The banners are out there. Everyone having a bit of fun. Everyone trying to support. Everyone seeing where they can get that little bit of climb. And the grandstands going a little bit more wild for our racers as they give it everything they got right to the end of the line. This is going to be a hard push for a lot of our drivers to figure out what they need to do to have a great run. So far though, Byron Mitchell running a very good sector 6 at the moment over Wolfgang Weiss, and that is going to help him out here. Wolfgang Weiss unfortunately a little bit slow, but sector 7 though, different approach to it through it all. Luke Lucchesi a little bit slower on the pace, and you can see him starting to break off at the moment. So Byron Mitchell is going to maintain a good bit of run over Wolfgang Weiss and through the race. But so far, fastest lap time of the race has been set by Jason Coetzee, who is doing everything he can to keep the momentum up. And where are they going to go on the way through? So lots and lots of little information that's going to happen. Lots of ideas going to happen. Be unfortunate if a safety car comes out and really goes and checks it. But Wolfgang Weiss switching inside, outside, looking for any way to get past at the moment. Couldn't quite get that all done. And Byron Mitchell keeping it all together. And now needs to battle out. Wolfgang Weiss getting very uncertain, a little bit uncomfortable sitting in this train. He wants a little bit of breathing room, either for Luke Lucchesi to taper off and get sucked in by Sean Strader, or he's going to have a bit of a tough time out there. Definitely one that we are going to keep a very close eye on. Another good train, Luka Logovic, Noah Hendricks and Werner Swart still fighting it out between one another. 3-car train not giving an inch at this moment and really liking to push each other that little bit more of a climb and see where it all goes. But at the moment it is all about the momentum as drivers starting to settle down into their grooves. The times are starting to come down. Roughly you're looking at majority of the field doing about 2-minute 2s during the course of this race. Others our top 3 running 2:01s at the moment, and that is just to keep some sort of pace ahead of the field. Where that all works out for them, only time will tell, as drivers are really looking to work their way through, understand the battles that are needed here, and how far they're willing to go in this race. How far can they push the limit as they get ready to rock and roll? So Luke Lucchesi trying to close up to Wolfgang Weiss, does lose out through the final corner, but he seems to close up through sector 2, 3 and 4 onto the back of Wolfgang Weiss, and also turn 1, Wolfgang Weiss having a bit of a problem. But what I'm seeing there is a little bit of a rooster tail starting to kick up, and if we go on board, if we can get some scenic shots, yep, windscreen wipers ablaze, we've got a little bit of drizzle, folks. This is now going to change things up as we're up to 90%, and we are expecting a rainstorm to come down on our drivers. You can see that rooster tail off the rear wheels starting to become a little bit more of a factor, and the drivers are going to have to be well aware of the situation of where they're going to get this climb. What do they need to do, and how are they going to get the strategies right for this one? It's not hard enough for the slicks to be taken off and put wets on. You're still a bit loose, but the slicks are going to start arguing with you hugely at the moment, and drivers are going to have to keep a well cautious mind on this approach, because a wet line here in iRacing works a little bit differently. Now, rain has a unique function here in iRacing where the dry line will only form where the cars actively driving creates a racing line. Now that means if everyone's not on the ideal racing line, the ideal racing line will be soaked. If you don't have the guys going towards the apexes are going to start building up a horrific little puddle, and you're going to have a tough time out there. That is a factor that we've got to consider during the course of this race, is now you're going to have to rely on the grid to try and move as much of the water off the racing line. Also, we've got to count on the most used racing line that has got the most rubber on it becomes the worst place to race because of the lack of grip. That all that rubber comes up to the surface, it gets slick, all that oil comes up, it becomes slick. Drivers are going to have a tough time out there as the tires wear down before they need to start really considering wet weather tires. And at that moment, you've got to look at the track conditions. It is blazing. Do you want to put the wet weather tires on yet? You know they're going to be. Now, unfortunately for others that are taking the risk to put wet weather tires on too early, may lose out the run, as we're starting to see those rooster tails coming down a little bit more, and now the rain getting a bit harder on these cars, and this means cornering is going to be an absolute nightmare for most. And this little Constantina effect that we're starting to see Wolfgang Weiss, Luke Lucchesi and Sean Stratham gets a little bit worse. The ASMI, Ryan Ottens, they're also going to get a bit worse, but we do have a bit of contact. Cameron de Bastos having a bit of a problem, going and losing out a bit of time. What on earth happened to him? As Cameron, tank slapper, loses the rear, slides around, and Janneman Price having to just get around his teammate, pushing a fraction too hard on the wet weather tires, and unfortunately that lands up with you going the wrong way round rather quickly. So, I mean, this is going to be the difficult stages of the race, and now drivers are in a condition that is optimal for wet weather tires. This is now to the point of you're going to have to take what we call the karting line. It's wide out through the corners, narrow inside, and wide out once again. You're going to have to switch your racing line. You're going to have to think about where you're going to go here. And also, once you put wet weather tires on, you've got to get those up to temp. As we see Ryan Ottens going around the outside. And can he keep the grip though? Yes, am I really doing everything he can? Sean Stratham, a little bit of a Constantina effect as they dive into the pits. Now we're starting to see the pit stops. Byron Mitchell, Sean Stratham, yes, am I, all pulling into the pits. And it does look like Luka Logovic and Noah Hendricks going and pulling into the pits as well. So we're getting quite a few pit stops starting to creep in. Troy Dolanchik, Jason Coetzee, they're going to keep on going. They're going to push a bit harder here and rather keep going on the race, where Byron Mitchell said, listen, I'm not happy with this. I'm going to wet weather tires. Very smart. Going to also try his luck. Luke Lucchesi and Wolfgang Weiss are fighting it out, and this is going to be a proper run all the way through. And we're getting reports from John Janssen van Rensburg that unfortunately, due to mechanical problems, it is not working out in his favor and might not see the end of the race. Not the way we want to see it and not the way we want to do it. But for Mr. van Rensburg, you're more than welcome to come to the commentary box. It will be an honor to have a chat to you, just to give a bit of a recap on the season for the Team Slowpokes. It's been quite a grow for it, as we see Luke Lucchesi get ahead of Wolfgang Weiss, and that is for track position, and possibly could be for the championship on the way through. But for Van Rensburg, you're always welcome. We have a chat in the commentary side and get a bit of an idea for all it's going to be. It's going to have to be a wild run for our drivers to really look forward in the race and who's going to be able to get that little bit of momentum. So much yet to go on, so much is yet to happen, and well, we've had a little bit of a downpour that has changed up the race, and so far our top 8 have opted to stick it out on the dries as we see Troy Dolanchik dive into the pits. Jason could see, I think, will follow suit as well. Yes, it's a little bit too rough for him, but Yuri Impy Swart on the other hand saying, I'm not going to give up, I'm going to keep going, I'm going to push as hard as I can. And we see Cameron de Bastos, unfortunately, another problem coming into play for the young driver as he climbs onto the anchors. He's on wet weather tires, touches the curb, and it just steps the rear out, unfortunately, on that Audi as it gets unsettled during the course of it. So definitely not ideal circumstances for him, and will be going and battling out there. Oh man, just absolutely gutting to see some drivers having that rough time. Like Van Rensburg, due to mechanical problems, is out of the race. And oh, we see a major impact for Werner Swart, who has now crashed out quite badly up against the walls. The nose of that Mustang is looking very bent, and I would deem to say the steering, yeah, the steering also not looking too okay at this point. Werner Swart, one of the drivers that opted to stay on the dries, is going to be brutally regretting that option and will be keeping himself going. So not ideal circumstances for him, and he's going to have to really find out where it's going to work. We might actually see, there it is, that is Van Rensburg getting back out onto track. So Van Rensburg is not out of the woodwork yet. The Team Slowpoke's pro driver is going to give it everything he can right until the last, and that is honestly well done for him, and it's good to see that he's going to stick it out that little bit longer. He's going to push that little bit harder and get himself going, as we do see Noah Hendricks and Luka Logovic. Unfortunately, Luka going and falling off the track there. Noah Hendricks will be capitalizing on it, gains a position to sit into that top 10, and now looks to close down on Ryan Ottens ahead. Raymond Duggan doing a good job to try and close up to Janneman Price. Janneman a little bit more cautious approach here. Raymond Duggan taking a little bit more of an aggressive line, wanting to really close up that gap as fast as possible. He's one of the 2 cars that are close to one another. The other one is Troy Dolanchik, who was leading out the race. Now going and swapping out to wet weather tires, closing up to the likes of Luke Lucchesi. Yuri Impy Swart now pulling into the pits, going to be serving his pit stop and also switching out the tires to wet weather conditions. So we are up to 94%, heading on to 100%. That is going to really change things out for our run, and we'll have to see how that's going to work out for our drivers. And is it going to dry up is the next question, as Troy Dolanchik giving a quick flash to Luke Lucchesi, wanting to try and get by. Luke Lucchesi runs a little bit wide, tries to come back at him, couldn't quite get the momentum, but it's going to go door to door as we see Werner Swart diving into the pits after going and losing a bit of control there. Luke Lucchesi going to give Troy Dolanchik a run for his money. They're going to go side by side, and Luke Lucchesi tried putting his nose in, looks to try and go around. Can he carry a lot of the momentum through? It's a tank slapper, and that loses out that little bit of time as Yuri Impy Swart also losing our position to Sean Stradham, who gets a climb. Werner Swart falling down the ladder a little bit after having his contact, so he is really trying to find that little bit of motivation. The team will be rebuilding that car and get it back out onto track. So the drivers having to figure out what they're going to do here. Noah Hendricks going around Yuri Impy Swart, making quick work of the McLaren, utilizing that Ferrari 296, but Yuri Impy Swart immediately comes back at him, and Noah Hendricks closing off a line and forcing Yuri Swart to take more of a evasive maneuver. Had to go outside, hooked onto the wet line, loses out a bit of time under braking, and that has cost him a bit of time and allowed Luka Logovic to get that little bit closer, become that little bit more of a fighting chance in the car. So let's go through our running order as it stands. Jason Coetzee leads out the pack, followed by Byron Mitchell, Troy Dolanchik, followed by Luke Lucchesi, Wolfgang Weiss, Sean Straden, Ryan Ottens, Noah Hendricks, Luka Logovic going and getting past Yuri Swart, who gets it sideways, brings it back, getting very unsettled with that McLaren, not having a good time. Now Paul Herber, who's running in 11th, has Yuri in his sights. Yes, am I in 12th? 13th, Cameron Zianeman Price, followed by Cameron de Bastos, Raymond Duggan, Jeff Hancock, Werner Swart, and John Jans van Rensburg. But Paul Herber getting the pass on Yuri Swart, who is an absolute crawl at the moment. What has gone on with that car? He is just not settled. Yasamai gets the pass on him, and now we are going to have a bit of a time, because here comes Janeman Price, who sees Yuri Swart, who is still out on the dry tires. That is why he's battling. The dry tires in these conditions is absolutely eating him up, and this field is swallowing up in a rate of knots at the moment. Not ideal times here. Werner Swart, though, is still on a set of dries. So he hasn't changed his tires, and you can see the Mustang just stepping out under everything. And unfortunately, that is costing him a bit of time. So there is drivers still hanging out with dry tires in these very, very hectic conditions. Luka Logovic into the pits, though, as Janeman Price scoring in yet another position on him. Yuri Swart dives into the pits, but Yuri needs to go and swap out. Is he going to go onto the wet weather tires? It's far too dangerous to be out there on dries. Anyone that's trying to push that a little bit further is going to run into an issue and get swallowed up rather quickly in any of the fights, or lose out quite a bit. Now Wolfgang Weiss is behind Luke Lucchesi, but I do want to point out, many people say, oh, well, what does the rain do that's different to in the dry? Why does it make racing so difficult? And why do people complain about it? Well, I'm going to go in the cockpit with the car as we do see the lights of that spray. And watch how it starts to affect your view. When you get into the slipstream, you will battle to see your brake markers a little bit more. You'll battle to see the car a little bit more. Thankfully, it has eased up quite a bit. You notice that the drivers do step a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and I can go and try and see where the markers are. So it's definitely a tough time out there. And as we do see Jason Coetzee going and landing up off the track. So for those that are wanting to keep an eye out roughly on where things are going to work out, we will post a link out on the SimGrid page to go and take a look at it. Also in the link in the description, see our SimGrid page. And Yasamai, oh man, touches a curb, and that Audi just says no thank you, spins out and puts him in the middle of the circuit, has to wait for the cars to come by, and that is just an agonizingly slow slide on the way through. So we're going to ask our admins to please put a championship standings that people can view out on SimGrid, but for those that are also looking forward to joining and being a part of the Raceface family, we do invite you to come onto SimGrid, come and register, join us in the Discord. All the links are in the description, and be a part of the amazing racing we have here. Lots going on. This is the final round of the iRacing GT3 Sprint Series here at Raceface.Pro, but we do have an endurance race coming up on the 7th of December around, it's the 8 hours of Japan. That will be having a bit of fun. As well, on the 7th of December, for our Assetto Corsa fans, Assetto Corsa Competizione fans out there, we will have a 24 hours of Spa for you to enter and be a part of it. Do want to note though, both the iRacing and the ACC is free to join. Link on SimGrid, join up on our Discord, free entries, get yourselves in, get your mates involved, come racing to be a part of it on the 7th of December. This is turning into a bit of a wild thing though. Troy Dolanchik closed up to Byron Mitchell. Now Dolanchik was originally leading with quite a strong lead. Byron Mitchell though, a little bit more competent, trying to handle the Audi versus at the start of the race with those cold tires. But he's going to have to be very cautious as Troy Dolenchik is getting very, very hungry to get that pass done and dusted. You'll have to see where he goes. Jason Coetzee is also not too far ahead. Then we've got Wolfgang Weiss, lost out a bit of time to Luke Lucchesi to open up by about a second, and that is starting to change up through the running order. So definitely little moments starting to be very critical to the championship. And where are things going to work out? How are they able to get that climb? What's needed to push themselves? Well, at the moment, what's needed for Troy Dolenchik is a little bit of visibility as he's getting the absolute rooster tail from Byron Mitchell. Dives on the inside. Byron Mitchell couldn't quite get the Audi to turn on its nose and gets pushed out a little bit wide, close to the wall. Has to come slightly off. He's not going and backing out. He is absolutely flat. Skates against the wall. Has a good go. Byron Mitchell going to try to go around the outside of Troy Dolenchik as they head into turn one. Byron Mitchell trying to fight back tooth and nail. Doesn't want to lose out the positioning to Troy Dolenchik. He wants to really get the climb. Looks to try to go around the outside. Loses out that little bit of momentum. Troy Dolenchik just keeping a little bit ahead and managing to stay a little bit more ahead of Byron Mitchell. He's taken those risky times through some of the most complex parts of the track. That creates a slide, becomes a little bit of an undrivable section. You're going to have to get yourself all dialed back in, get into the rhythm, and stay fighting. Another little battle starting to form is Luka Logovic up against Raymond Duggan. Now, Raymond Duggan is quite competent in the rain. He is quite familiar with the rain, but with Luka Logovic, he's able to close those gaps. He's willing to take the risk to get those passes done and dusted. How he gets this pass done and dusted, that is where the question comes in. Oh no! Raymond Duggan sideways and contact with Luka Logovic. Luka smashing the front end to pieces. Unfortunately, no steering control, and Raymond Duggan has his rear suspension knocked of note. They unfortunately getting those cars towed back to pits, repairs needing to be done. That was an absolute massive collision and contact. It was a contact or sideways. Cameron Bastos closing up to Janneman Price as they were on the back of Paul Herber, and Cameron Bastos late on the brakes trying to get it going. Looks up towards the inside. Oh no! Late on the brakes, on the pedals, and contact into the rear of Janneman Price. Oh man, wouldn't like to be on the radio for those two, and not having a good time out there. That does cause a bit of damage to both the cars, and Cameron Bastos getting ahead of Janneman Price. Now Janneman going and tapering off a little bit, and that's going to bring him closer to Yaz Samai in that race. And now Yaz has an opportunity to strike back depending on what the damage is. What is the front end and the rear end looking at those two Audis ahead of him. Jason Coetzee going defensive as Troy Dolenchik trying to go around the outside. Jason runs out wide, gets sideways. Troy Dolenchik has a go at him, goes around the outside through the puddle, sweeps across the nose, and now Troy Dolenchik leading out the pack, trying to throw as much of that spray into the face of Jason Coetzee. Gets it done and dusted, and now carrying a lot of momentum through. Byron Mitchell trying to get a little bit of a run. Luke Lucchesi getting away a bit of ahead as Wolfgang Weiss, a little bit of off tracks, goes and loses out a bit of time here. So Luka Logovic, Raymond Duggan, Yuri Swart, and Jean Jansson Rensburg going to fight it out and see where they get going on the race here. So this is going to be a bit of a tough time, and Yuri Swart actually giving us a bit of insight. Unfortunately, not able to choose wet, and that is why he fell down the order in the race nonetheless. Oh, man, that's absolutely heartbreaking to hear, and that unfortunately can be the absolute break of note for a race. And now I know what's going to happen for the likes of Yuri Pissoir. He's going to be putting in some support for his friends out there as well, giving him a bit of gears. You know, you got to give him a bit of gears for the likes of Troy Dolenchik, Jason Coetzee, Byron Mitchell, Luke Lucchesi, but also feeding a bit of information to Luke Lucchesi about Wolfgang Weiss and just trying to see where he can get going. I mean, this is going to be a proper run as they bail their way through. Now it is Wolfgang Weiss trying to close up on Luke Lucchesi. Couldn't get the pass done. All the crowd starting to settle. Sean Stratham into the pits. Jellerman Price into the pits. And exit trying to get a bit of repair work on the cars. And the drivers now trying to get that little bit of momentum going. Jeff Hancock's on the other hand. Looks like yellow flags coming up for Jeff Hancock's as that Porsche a little bit of a step out before the corner. He gets back onto the power. Gently feeding it through. And unfortunately tail kicking out yet again. Throws him out and loses out that little bit of time. Oh, man, just every time he's trying to get that little bit of momentum and he is getting swallowed up. And Jellerman Price gets that pass back once again. Now Jellerman Price has to go after Yaz Semai, who will be going after Cameron de Bastos. I'm sure carrying a bit of damage to the nose of his car after that contact with fellow teammate Jellerman Price. Troy Dolanchik opening up the gap to Jason Coetzee. Dry line starting to form out on circuit, and it does look like the rain's starting to settle. So it's all about just shifting that water just a little bit. And as I say that, the rain does start to come back in drips and drabs, enough to just keep that surface wet. But it's all about trying to get a huge amount of water off the racing server or the surface to stay within the fight. But Luke Lucchesi, Wolfgang Weiss fighting it out. Ryan Otten's still trying to get a little bit of climb towards the sharp end. And he is right behind Sean Stratham. So Ryan Otten's is still a viable threat here. Sean Stratham also can win big points if he can carry on that little bit of momentum as they charge their way through. Luke Lucchesi getting a little bit of momentum. And Wolfgang Weiss trying to give it everything he's got to really keep up that little bit of momentum, to stay on the back of the Audi, keep that constant pressure. Where is it going to end? We're not going to see it this time around, but I do think on the next lap, he can maintain the pace down the straight is going to be a big one. Ryan Otten's onto the back of Sean Stratham. Sean Stratham from Logistical Nightmare Racing, looking to keep ahead of the likes of Ryan Ottens, who closes up that gap at a rate of knot, looking left, looking right, can't really go on the attack just as yet, going to have to keep it well in check. Ryan Ottens a little bit later on the brakes to just maintain the fight, and now Ryan Ottens in the toe of Sean Stratham, trying to pull his way through, getting closer and closer and closer down the main straight, but not close enough to go for any attack, but just far enough that he can spot the apexes. Unfortunately, outbraked himself, tried taking a different approach into the corner to get a little bit of momentum, but that Ferrari 296 just not as happy as it needs to be to get the drive and close down to Sean Stratham at the moment. So definitely there is that starting to form, but don't count out Noah Hendricks. He is hanging on to the tail at the moment, trying to push himself that little bit more, really get that climb and see how it's all going to go through it all. So as our drivers continue that little bit of momentum, Troy Dolanchik, Jason Coetzee, and Byron Mitchell leading out the pack. Luke Lucchesi running in fourth place with Wolfgang Weiss, Sean Stratham, Ryan Ottens, Noah Hendricks, Paul Herber, Cameron de Bastos, Yaz Semai, Jellerman Price, Jeff Hancock, Raymond Duggan, and Werner Swart. Luka Logovic unfortunately retired. Jean Jans van Rensburg still out on circuit, trying to unlap himself and has a way to move himself up into 16th position, and Yurian Biswat unfortunately having to retire due to force majeure, not able to get those wet weather tires on, and unfortunately became too rough to drive on slicks, and instead of landing up in accidents, choosing with the team to retire the car for the final race. And not an easy call there as Wolfgang Weiss closes up with the brakes on Luke Lucchesi, trying to do everything he can. Couldn't quite get the acceleration out, couldn't quite get the pace, and now Wolfgang Weiss is going to be on the back of Luke Lucchesi like a bad rash. Sean Stratham dealing with Ryan Ottens, doing exactly the same thing. A little bit of late braking to get it sorted. But Jason Coetzee, yellow flags for Jason Coetzee out in the Chev, carrying a lot of momentum, and I think the rear just snapping out underneath him. Yep, hooked the curb, got unsteady, snapped the rear, and saves it out of the wall, but only just, and rejoins right across the nose of Luke Lucchesi, who would have lifted ever so slightly, and that allowed Wolfgang Weiss to close up the gap. Definitely some tough times out there, and it shows the conditions can bite you any way that's possible at the moment. But Lamborghini leading out the charge. Byron Mitchell, Luke Lucchesi out in the Audis, doing a great job out there. Wolfgang Weiss in the Porsche trying to have a go, as you see Sean Stratham keeping Ryan Ottens at bay, who keeps running out wide, pushing a fraction too hard, and that has eaten up it. And Noah Hendricks is going to go side by side. He's going to have the drive here. Ryan Ottens is going to have to be very cautious, trying to hold that inside line. Noah Hendricks making short work of Ryan Ottens, but can he hold it into turn one? Ryan Ottens caught into the spray, backs out of the throttle, does not want to get involved in that fight as they continue on. Jason Coetzee having a good go now at Wolfgang Weiss, and may actually play a very critical role in the championship. If Jason Coetzee can get a hold of Wolfgang Weiss and get by and become that little bit of a block, Wolfgang Weiss will lose out the championship as he tries to send it a bit late, runs out wide, compromise. Jason Coetzee has a good go at him, and now we'll have the drive on the exit, so as they push their way through, hoping to get a little bit more run. Paul Gerber lining up against Ryan Ottens, and Ryan, who is trying to defend the outside through the little squiggles, and it is unfortunately not in Paul Gerber's favor. Ryan Ottens getting on the power just early enough to swing the rear in, gets that little bit of momentum, and now kicking up that rooster tail, all that spray going right into the front windscreen of Paul Gerber as they go late into braking once again. Now we've gone way past what a Heat 1 would have been, which is 13 minutes. They're now moving on to the Heat 2, which is essentially the next 30 minutes. It's 45 minutes in. We've got an hour and 20 minutes worth of racing. And drivers are going to have to really work it out. Yasamai, unfortunately, having a bit of a problem. And let's take a look what happened to Yasamai, who was doing quite well. Tried slowing the car down and grass, and just have that rear step out a little bit underneath him, and that compromises some of his drive. Jason Coetzee lines up inside, switches to outside. Wolfgang Weiss putting a lot of pressure, tries to lean on him a little bit. Jason Coetzee trying to go around the outside, can't get the pass done and does as yet. Who's going to be on the power early? Wolfgang Weiss tries to come across the nose, and Jason Coetzee now has the option to get underneath him. We've got a little bit of straight line speed. Wolfgang Weiss going to defend the inside line, move slightly across to try and hold off the outside line, but that has compromised him. Jason Coetzee nose up on the inside, couldn't quite work out, and Wolfgang really going and doing everything he can to hold back Jason Coetzee tooth and nail. But this is now allowing Luke Lucchesi that little bit of a reprieve, that little bit of a moment to claw his way back in towards the fight, to stay in the sharp end and ensure that he can get a little bit closer, a fraction more towards the championship. How is this all going to work out? If Luke Lucchesi can pass Byron Mitchell and Troy Dolenchik, it is a done, dusted certainty that he would take the championship away from Wolfgang Weiss. But if Wolfgang can keep on the back of Luke Lucchesi, there is no way Luke Lucchesi can get the win in the championship. So Wolfgang Weiss needs to keep Luke Lucchesi either in his rearview mirror or his front windscreen. He cannot afford the likes of Jason Coetzee, who goes side by side. A little bit of contact between the two, and Jason puts the power down on that Chev. And this is worst case scenario. This is damage control mode for Wolfgang Weiss to try and get the climb. Paul Gerber closes up the gap to Ryan Ottens and can't really get the momentum through. Noah Hendricks trying to get a little bit closer to Sean Stratham as they really put the power down. Cameron de Bastos falling off the track, now trying to get a little bit put together after everything. He is doing whatever he can to stay in for the fight. Paul Gerber in the tow, pulling himself along. Ryan Ottens trying to make his way through. Goes around the outside. Paul Gerber trying to find any little grip to get the car to work and behave with him. Unfortunately, not turning into a good situation, and drivers having to really figure out what they need to do here. Sean Stratham, followed by Noah Hendricks, is pushing as hard as they can as they look to try and get that little bit of momentum. But it does look like Wolfgang Weiss has lost out nearly a second through the last sector to the likes of Jason Coetzee, and is doing everything he can to try and pull it back into the race. Nonetheless, it is just fighting tooth and nail who is going to really stand out. And considering the championship is so close to one another, you've got to be aware of the situation. As Paul Gerber trying to get a little bit of momentum to Ryan Otten's, hoping that he can have a good go. Noah Hendricks is doing a bit of a move towards Sean Stratham. As this little 4-car train, we see two different fights on the same screen, but as they fight it out with one another, it starts to build a concertina effect. You start dropping down little by little. It doesn't work in your favor, and unfortunately can land up with a bit of a difficult situation for the drivers to get that little bit of momentum. As Noah Hendricks closes up to Sean Stratham and looks to go on attack, Paul Gerber immediately trying to do exactly the same to Ryan Otten's, as Sean Stratham is really having to push a little bit harder. He's actually fallen off the circuit, outbraked himself. That's one, that's two, that's three, and Sean Stratham, unfortunately, looks like he's running into a bit of an issue. Does return to the circuit with a bit of a blink in and out, unfortunately, and that is going to compromise a lot of his time, losing out 3 positions in one corner. Stretch that little bit of momentum, got that little bit of a drive, unfortunately was just not getting the grip to work with him in the race. Lost out 3 positions, but that does allow Paul Gerber to focus on Ryan Otten's. Noah Hendricks now needs to turn his focus away from looking at the back of an Audi to looking in the rearview mirrors to the front of a Ferrari and a Porsche that are chasing down at a rate of knots, and looking based on Noah Hendricks' last lap time of a 2:17.36. Yes, the wet weather conditions have done that. From a 2:01 of Troy Dolenchik, he's doing 2:15s on that last lap, and that's because of how wet it is. But he is not, Noah Hendricks is not faster than Ryan Otten's, who did a 2:17.2, and Paul Gerber with a 2:17.07. So Paul has got a bit of momentum over the likes of Noah Hendricks, who's going to have to look on the bigger picture here. Who's going to get the climb? What's going to happen as they get that bit of momentum? Jason could see looking to close up to Luke Leclerc. Now this is also a bit of a concern, because if Jason could see puts his nose in and forces Luke Leclerc back into the fight with the likes of Wolfgang Weiss, it puts that championship back into contention and will turn into a bit of a difficult one for it to go. Troy Dolenchik sitting on 406 points though. He also has a chance here. Troy Dolenchik, if he can hold that first place, possibly, just possibly, he may be able to take the championship, but it's going to be hard work as they try and get past likes of Jeff Hancock's in one of the worst sectors to try and get past the car. Unfortunately, that all sways. Ryan Otten's onto the back of Noah Hendricks, looks towards the inside. Paul Gerber trying to make up some time. Ryan Otten's gets the pass, but Noah Hendricks keeping the power through. Will go side by side. Ryan Otten's gets the pass done and dusted. Noah Hendricks stuck to the outside, has got Paul Gerber having a good go at him. Paul Gerber slightly offline though. Both cars are going to be running through some horrific puddles, battling for grip. Noah Hendricks late on the brakes, trying to sling it through. Has he compromised a lot of drive though? He's able to keep going, and that allows onto the back of Paul Gerber to really do everything he can. So now Noah Hendricks is going to have to think very carefully on the Porsche, a very agile car to get over and really close up that gap over the likes of the Ferrari, which is a bit more sensible, if one would say, in terms of its driving. A little bit of understeer creeps out, doesn't really step the rear out as much. But Noah Hendricks has closed up onto Ryan Otten's. He did come off track though, and here comes Paul Gerber, dives up around. Noah Hendricks trying to get the power down, but unfortunately just no grip in his favor, and will lose out that little bit of drive as they head down the back straight. This is a fight for 7th and 8th position, as Ryan Otten's in 6th now starts to open that gap a little bit more. Wolfgang Weiss trying to close up the gap to the likes of Jason Coetzee, who's all over the back of Luke Leclerc. Now Jason wants to get that top 3, and Luke Leclerc is going to have to be very, very cautious on this approach. How is he going to make this work as Jason Coetzee looks inside, outside, tries to go for any of the sends possible, couldn't quite get it sorted. Oh, it's a contact! Jason Coetzee and Luke Leclerc contact that hands it to Wolfgang Weiss, who manages to get the momentum. Now he's got to absolutely give it everything. He needs to try and break away. Luke Lucchese going to be a bit frustrated with that. Jeff Hancock is now back in front of them. They don't have to go around. Jason Coetzee tries to look for the inside line. He backed out of it, but is showing a bit of a fight. And Luke Lucchese defending like his life depends on it, which it does. Wolfgang Weiss is in a critical chance to win the championship. And if Jason Coetzee gets ahead of Luke Lucchese, that's it. Done. Dusted. Can't handle it anymore. And especially as time starts to tick over, this is worst case scenario for our drivers out there. It is damage control, damage control, damage control required by these drivers, as Jason Coetzee once again closing up under braking, looks for the inside. Couldn't get the pass done on Luke Lucchese as he tries to have another go, closing that gap little by little. Luke Lucchese, slight little bit of defense. Jason Coetzee, a snap oversteer as that front end catches a puddle, takes a dive on the inside once again, and Luke Lucchese having to really keep his eyes open on the rearview mirror here, where he needs to try and straighten up. Luke losing out a little bit of time, gets dropped in terms of pace, and Jason Coetzee into the toe. Quick flash of the lights though, saying, you're holding me up a little bit, I'm going to have a go at you. And Luke Lucchese does not want to lose out on this. He wants to keep the momentum, goes and slows up, and Jason Coetzee around the outside, trying his luck though, runs out wide, a little too far wide, and Jason Coetzee narrowly keeps it out of the wall. But unfortunately, that has absolutely hurt him in the run. That is equivalent to kicking your pinky toe on the corner of the bed that he had there. And unfortunately, that hurts in terms of pace. Paul Gerber onto the back of Ryan Ottens, trying to give it everything he's got. Ryan Ottens maintaining a little bit of pace ahead. He's running in that 6th place. He's trying to close up that 8 seconds deficit to 5th place. But Paul Gerber now looking to really throw down at Ryan Ottens, looking to have a shot at him as we get closer and closer towards the end of our finale. This is it. This is the end of the iRacing GT3 Sprint Series for 2024. The only iRacing that will be held by Raceface will be the 8 Hours of Japan on the 7th of December. So get your entries in for that one. You want to be a part of it as we go and have a bit of fun out there. But Ryan Ottens drops off the track. Paul Gerber making a quick pass. Noah Hendricks is going to see this as a perfect opportunity to close that gap. All have served their pit stops, ladies and gentlemen, so there's no need to go back into the pit. But the rain has tapered off. It's still a fairly wet track, but as they're getting closer and closer, the threat becoming a little bit more real of those rain tires taking an absolute beating, starting to go up and up in temperature, up and up in pressures. Cars going to start becoming very, very loose very quickly. And considering this track is mostly concrete that the drivers are going and contending on, it means that at the best of times, it's got very little grip. As Jason Coetzee looked for the inside on Luke Lucchese, couldn't get that pass down, and will have to wait once again as they fight it out. This is not in the favor of Jason Coetzee, who tries to get that little bit of momentum, tries to see whether it's going to work for him, but unfortunately not working out in his favor. Late on the brakes once again, but Luke Lucchese fighting tooth and nail to hold that car in check. Will be pushing himself out a little bit more. In the middle of the circuit though, carrying a lot of momentum. Spray kicking up. He suddenly has Jason look up on the inside, going for the pass. Side by side they go. Luke Lucchese still leaning on him, and Coetzee running him out wide. Both landing up a little bit wide, and that compromised that little bit of time from Luke Lucchese, who now loses out of position. He closes immediately up to Jason Coetzee because this is critical for the championship. This is his fighting chance to hold on to that championship, and it's slowly slipping away out of his grasp. This is nightmare situations, and I can tell you there's a good bunch of drivers out there in the virtual grandstands that knows that very feeling where you can just, you had your hand on that trophy, had your hand on the win, and it's starting to slip little by little by little by little until eventually it just falls apart right in front of you, and you're gonna have to really find that little bit more. Troy Dolenchik, though, will be scoring valuable points and possibly brings him into the top 3. Byron Mitchell out there pushing as hard as he can, but one person who is smiling and is begging for the checkered flag to come out, as in 55 seconds would be the end of the double heats usually, but this is an 80 minutes. It's 1 hour and 20 minutes, so they're gonna have to go for another little bit. That final push to push themselves out a little bit more. Jason Coetzee loses out a bit of momentum, and that has helped out Luke Lucchesi get the position back. Jason Coetzee very slow on circuit and is detrimentally slow on circuit. What has gone on with that car? As he pulls off the track, Jason Coetzee retiring the vehicle, and that is him out of the race. That is him out of the race. That brings Luke Lucchesi back into it. But unfortunately, Jason Coetzee retiring at the 1 hour mark. There was 20 minutes to go, and he couldn't get it to the line. What on earth has gone on with that car? What happened? What broke? What ran out of fuel? There's so many questions that are being had. Drivers are going to be asking plenty of what's going on. Let's see where we can go. Where is it all going to be on the run through? But Troy Dolenchik at this point is the happiest camper to scoring big points. He needs to keep it up. He's 11 seconds ahead of Byron Mitchell, so there's no reason to keep pushing too hard. Byron Mitchell is 8 seconds away from Wolfgang Weiss, so he's also got a bit of momentum here. Not to worry. Luke Lucchesi 9 seconds back from that. Paul Herbert 9 seconds back from him, followed by Ryan Ottens, Noah Hendricks, Sean Stratham, Cameron De Bastos, Yaz Semai, and Janeman Price trying to close up that time as well after his unfortunate pit stop. Jeff Hancock's is now up into 12th. Remember, this man started from pit lane. He is now into 12th. Raymond Duggan having a good go. He's in 13th position. Werner Swart is rounding out our remaining pack for our pro division. Unfortunately, multiple retirements being Jason Coetzee, John Jans van Rensburg, Luka Logovic, and Yuri Umpi Swart to get that bit of momentum through. And now that we're into those closing stages, the dying 19 minutes of this race, it is all or nothing for a lot of these drivers to really wind it up. The closest battle on track is Sean Stratham and Noah Hendricks. As the track starts to become a little bit more favorable, you can see that dry line starting to form more and more. That's something you do want to go for, but in rain tires, you every so often want to get back into those puddles, try and cool the tires down, and then get yourself back towards the dry line. You want to just try and keep things stable, keep these things cool, and really keep going on the run. Drivers are really having to force that little bit of pace, that thought process, that run through the head of what is needed at the moment to stay in for a fight. As we see Sean Stratham snapping the rear of his car, losing out a bit of time. Troy Dolenchik getting ahead of one of the team heap together cars, but Ryan Ottens 2 seconds back from the likes of Paul Herbert has got Jeff Hancock in front of him. Jeff Hancock's huge tank slapper through the final corner. He catches it, brings it back, and Ryan Ottens sends it up on the inside. Paul Herbert diving into pit lane though. That is unexpected. Paul Herbert and Sean Stratham into the pits. Did they not have enough in the tank to keep going? They were out on dry tires, possibly not having enough left in the tank for the final lots of the race, and they are now doing a splash and dash that can make or break their race, which goes and begs the question, how much fuel have these drivers got left in the tank? Can they go that little bit further? Can they push that little bit harder? Can they get that climb? Troy Dolenchik, Byron Mitchell, Wolfgang Weiss still having a good go. Luke Lucchesi getting a little bit of momentum. Ryan Ottens closing up. He's in 5th place with Noah Hendricks doing everything he can. Cameron Bastos in 7th place now after gaining 2 positions from the pit stop. Yaz Semai has done a great job. He gets past Paul Herbert, who runs out a little bit wide. Paul Herbert trying to keep a bit of momentum. Sean Stratham exiting pit lane now will suddenly have Janeman Price trying to close up the gap to him. And Janeman, who is tailing onto the back of Troy Dolanchek, seeing where he can get a bit more involved in the fight here. How far is he willing to go up the road and really close up that gap? So Yellowman Price has got quite a bit of time before he can catch up to Sean Stratham, but it's not off the cards. But once again, question comes in: how much fuel is left in these vehicles? How much has the drivers got left in the tank that they're willing to push themselves to really hit those banker lap times in very mixed conditions right now? This is very, very greasy. It's not wet out there enough that it's going and utilizing the wet tires optimally, but it is still wet enough that you can't switch to dries. Jeff Hancock, so yellow flags for the Porsche as he tries to make his way through. A little bit of a slide, goes late under the brakes, and unfortunately a little bit on the puddle, and the rear just stepping out, heads towards the wall, keeps it out of it though, and loses out a little bit of time. So ultimately not working in his favor either during the course of this race. So many drivers having highs and low moments on the way through. Yellow flags coming out for Paul Kerber, who loses a bit of momentum and just slightly rubs onto the side of Werner Swartz. He's able to get back on track, both going and returning back to track, having a good time there. Jeff Hancock, though, once again, another problem coming in for Hancock, and this time into the final corner, runs out wide, has the rear snap out. Can he pull it back though? Not so much, and into the wall. And that pretty much is knobbling his race. And reverses back. Van Rensburg nowhere to go, into the nose of Jeff Hancock's, and that has now caused damage to both vehicles, Jeff Hancock's and Van Rensburg, who have both pulled into pit lane to get those fast repairs done, try and get the cars up and going and push themselves a little bit more. Paul Herber, on the other hand, taken something a little bit different, switched out to dry tires, and into the wall. Just can't slow the car down. That has damaged that front left, and unfortunately breaking the front control arm. He's going to have to get that car sorted out. He took the gamble. Dry tires, possibly. Unfortunately, track conditions still not ideal. That line is not quite there to really get that little bit of momentum, to get that ultimate climb as they come through. The drivers thinking where they need to be, how they need to go, where is the climb going to be. Troy Dolanchek, Byron Mitchell, Wolfgang Weiss running first, second and third. Luke Lucchesi up into fourth place, going and trying to hold on to that championship. Now the question is, how much is left in the tank? Do they need to do a splash and dash? And when are they going to do a splash and dash? For those that are driving a little bit nicely, you have a possibility to try and get it to the line just by the skin of your teeth. But it is, you're going to have to really focus on lifting, coasting, changing that engine throttle management, and just try and reduce as much of the power being put down. But subsequently, you're costing yourself lap time. You're costing yourself time out on track. And that allows others to close up that bit of momentum. So it's going to have to be a tough time, a tough call out for our drivers as they work their way through. Everyone in a little bit of no man's land at the moment. No one really close under a 3 second mark to one another. Everyone roughly about 5 seconds and up to one another as the race starts to become that little bit of a taper off towards the end of the race. Everyone just focusing on just getting these cars to the end. You don't want to push too hard. You don't want to push too aggressively. You want to just keep that little bit of momentum, that understanding of what you need to do. Sean Stratham keeping ahead of Janneman Price, who's miles back at this point. Paul Herber, after having his contact, took the gamble, dry tires, hit the front left suspension. Unfortunately, that went and impacted his race, throwing him down the order, not able to get that drive. And we'll have to see where it all goes for our drivers to ensure that they stay in for the fight. Every single one of the drivers looking to score as many points as possible in this 18-minute race that can help them out in their championship. Van Rensburg back on track after that contact with one of the cars, and unfortunately having to really think about how he's going to do this race. He's got the Altered Carbon Racing Mustang onto the back of him, and that is Werner Swart. Werner trying to close up that gap, really see where he can get involved. How is he going to be involved? That V8 does pick up an inherent understeer as it gets to a greasier condition. The rear does want to get a little bit more lively with the cars, so he's going to have to take a very cautious approach, very sussing out what he can do to Van Rensburg, who is a back marker. So Van Rensburg has got the blue flag, but not necessarily having to jump out the way. He doesn't have to jump out of the way. He can hold his racing line. He's not allowed to defend it though. If a pass is going to happen, he cannot defend and hold back Werner Swart. He's going to have to allow Werner Swart to go by. And man, this is always a tough call for all the drivers trying to figure out where everything goes. For Werner Swart, ideally, what is happening is Van Rensburg is giving him that little bit of a tow down the straight, which does help to slowly wean in the 25-second gap to the likes of Raymond Duggan. Now, Raymond Duggan is within arm's reach for that 12th place, but he's going to need every little bit of advantage. And if you get a slipstream from the Ferrari 296 of Van Rensburg, that does allow you a better race. As drivers push themselves that little bit more, runs out a bit wide. Werner Swart not having an easy time out there and battling it through. Troy Dolenchik only 12 seconds ahead of Byron Mitchell, and Byron Mitchell trying to close up that gap as fast as possible. Wolfgang Weiss trying to keep the gap well enough away from Luke Leclerc as they make their way through. Luke's still sporting a bit of damage on the car. Will need to get that sorted out. Hopefully it's not causing too much aerodynamic problems and causing the rear to be too loose, but it is something to keep in the back of the mind running through of, hey, I'm carrying that little bit of damage. I can't really brake on my old brake marker. I have to dial it back 2-3 meters to be able to stay in for the fight. Noah Hendricks, roughly 6 seconds away from Ryan Ottens, is looking to close up the gap between the two of them, and Ryan Ottens not having an easy time. Sean Stratham actually closing up a rate of knots to Yaz Samai, who is not having an easy time out there. Yaz Samai now losing out roughly 0.2 of a second. Yaz Samai really not having a good time out there. Maybe the Audi starting to struggle ever so slightly around the corners and really trying to battle it out. But with 9 minutes left of this race, the drivers need to find that little bit of a push. What needs to be done? How are you going to get that bit of momentum? Where is the climb going to come from? As Troy Dolenchik battles it out to hold position. Byron Mitchell now caught behind the likes of, that would be Janneman Price. As Janneman leaving the gap open, trying to get Byron Mitchell through, will be launching his way through. So Byron Mitchell having no problem there. And Jeff Hancock's allowing likes of the NJB, Wolfgang Weiss, to get on by. Luke Leclerc still miles away. Ryan Ottens lying in 5th. Noah Hendricks, Cameron Bastos in 7th position, setting constant 2:17s at the moment. That seems to be the majority of the field, actually backing the times off. Other than Troy Dolenchik and Byron Mitchell on that last lap were 2:15s. So they have really dialed the pace up. Maybe the track conditions starting to become a little bit more favorable to taking those very risky moves. How you can find that extra 1/10 of a second, an extra half a second, and just finding a little bit of grip. But Byron Mitchell throwing the Audi around, getting it to step out underneath him. He's got to be very, very cautious on undertaking that approach that may come back to bite him at a rate of knots if he is not awake enough to catch the car when it gets that tank slapper. So Ryan Ottens going to be watching his relative very carefully as he's getting word back from Noah Hendricks, closing up a rate of knot. Cameron Bastos in 7th, 17 seconds back, no fighting chance there, not going to happen. But everyone having to find their own groove, see where they fit into this race, how far can they go, and where is the lap times going to drop off. as Yellowman Price runs out a little bit wide, trying to find a bit of pace. Sean Stratham, though, back into the pits. Stratham back into the pits. He went off circuit. And let's see if we can try and identify what happened. Oh, tank slapper. Brings it into the grass. Kept it out of the wall. And that's him. So Sean Stratham going and losing out that little bit of momentum has cost him positions. And unfortunately, that rear stepping out underneath the driver was just an absolute killer for him as they try and figure their bit of momentum. It's always just that little bit too far, that little bit push, that little bit of I can keep it going. Unfortunately, you also have that moment where it's just a fraction too far. It does help out the other drivers. The other one moving up into 9th position, Paul Herber into 10th, Raymond Duggan, Werner Swart, Jeff Hancock's all moving up a position. Unfortunately, Sean Stratham with a bit of a toe back needed before he can get himself going. And I think may have possibly retired the car with roughly 6 minutes left of the race. The rear stepping out underneath him and costing him a severe amount of time. Unfortunately, also taking a lot of that fun factor out because now you're having to rethink, rebuild. And what has happened to the car? Did it bottom out? That it landed up with a bit of damage? Was the rev protection not quite there? And the engine took a bit of strain as you got the slight. Did the TC become a little bit of a hindrance to the driver? Many questions are being asked, and I know that the driver will be answering. The team asking him, Logistical Nightmare Racing team will be going and saying, hey, talk us through what happened, how did this happen, what did you feel, where did the snap come from? Just asking critical points to ensure they can stay in for the fight, and possibly they can get that car out to get yet another lap in this race. It's going to have to be it, and my heart goes out to them. I really hope so, but for Van Rensburg's sake, we are still plodding along. Remember, this is a driver that had the game crash and land up losing out a bit of time. So he needs to just keep that little bit of momentum on the way through. He needs to keep the pace to try and get the climb. Sean Stratham is in the pits. He can score point laps on the likes of Sean Stratham, but this is going to be a hard climb. Cameron Bastos currently up 10 positions from where he started, and Yellowman Price is up 9 positions from where he started. So those are the biggest gains in this race. Biggest losses is Yuri Piswat and Jason Petit. Yuri Piswat with 17 positions and Jason Petit with 11. But for Wolfgang Weiss, who started in second place, he's down 1 position and is now trying to chase down Byron Mitchell and doing everything he can. Take a look at the time starting to taper off though. 9 seconds difference between himself and Byron Mitchell. And that tells me the track's getting a bit warmer and the drivers are willing to push that little bit harder. But for how long? There's still puddles you can physically see out on the track. Stuff that you really don't want to touch. And even though you're feathering the throttle, you're trying to figure it out, you don't want to touch those puddles. Otherwise, you will land in the wall. You will smash the car to pieces. And that will throw you out the race very quickly. Especially in these last dying minutes of the Raceface.Pro Iracing GT3 Sprint Series here, and it's just a beautiful track of Sebring. Unfortunately, with the addition of rain, it does make things a little bit long in the tooth for a lot of these drivers, because usual corners where you can flat out and you can push as hard as you can, unfortunately this time around not an easy factor. You're going to have to lift, you're going to have to pull yourself back in and try and rein yourself into this and going, okay, well, I can't get this done now. I'm going to have to wait it out. I'm going to have to wait till the car settles before feeding the power on gently and being able to get closer to the race. So Yazamai drops a wheel off the track. He's having a bit of a tough time out there. Yellowman Price is looking to try and close up that gap with a 49.6. It's 49.6 gap deficit to Yazamai on the run through. So definitely a bit of an interesting time there, having to push themselves more. But now most of the drivers are focusing on just running the clock down. They will be keeping an eye out for this very driver, as Troy Dolenchik is looking to take the win for tonight. if all goes well. If everything bodes well, he's got the win. It helps him out in the championship to possibly get into that top 3. But what it is doing at the moment is it's providing an opportunity for anyone running below him to go down 1 extra lap. So if your fuel calculations aren't quite correct, having the first place car get round you and be able to go and get that final lap before you, which means it's less time out on the track, less time compromise, more time focusing on what is needed for your race at this current time. How can you hold your position as you battle your way through? And also with those fuel and tires, these dashboards will be lighting up like Christmas trees at a rate of knot that can affect them. Taking a look though from Rensburg, switching over to dry tires, nothing else left to lose. He's going to try and close up that gap to set the good lap times. Unfortunately, a bit close to the puddles there. It's going to cool down those tires quite rapidly. He's going to have to be very cautious of it, try and get the temperatures back into the swing of things, especially on a dry set of tires. And they will have to really figure out what's needed to be done here. So the Team Slowpokes will be discussing with one another, constantly trying to figure out what they can do. Final lap being raised for the likes of Troy Dolanchek, who's getting that little bit of momentum. He's looking to try and finish across the line. Byron Mitchell will be second of those to get the final flag, along with Wolfgang Weiss. So getting told, we're on our last lap, keep pushing, don't back off now. This is exactly where you want to be. Luke Lucchesi down into 4th place, so is going to be really suffering the impact here. Ryan Ottens, Noah Hendricks, Cameron de Bastos in 7th position, Yaz Semi in 8th, Janneman Price in 9th position, followed by Paul Herber, Raymond Duggan, Werner Swart, and Jeff Hancock. Fortunately, retirements that we have seen thus far is Sean Stratham. John Jans from Rensburg is trying to make up that time to get ahead of Sean Stratham before the end of the race, and this is going to be a difficult climb for him. He's got to try and close up quite a few laps by the looks of it. He is roughly trying to take a look for him. Laps done, and he has done 30 laps. He's got to knock off 2 laps off Sean Stratham, of which he won't be able to do with this checkered flag that will be coming out though. For the likes of Troy Dolanchik, he's going to be smiling ear to ear on this and carrying a lot of momentum through, heading through the final last sectors and to be soaking it up, as he will be the 2024 driver here at Sebring to take the final checkered flag of a absolutely stellar season of the Raceface.Pro iRacing GT3 Sprint Series. Gone out there, absolutely killed it. He's happy already. The celebration starting to come into play as he rounds the final corner. Got a little bit of hair raising though, had to brake a little bit, tries to get himself in order. Werner Swart, and that is Werner Swart slowing up, but coming across the line, ladies and gentlemen, taking the final checkered flag goes to Troy Dolanchik. 80 minutes of driving and absolutely done it. Second of that is going to be Byron Mitchell, driving off into the dirt, trying to bring it back. Done an absolutely stellar job out there, but Byron Mitchell in the Audi will take second place. Little bit of a tank slapper. He's happy across this, gets across the line, and will be really thrilled on that approach. Wolfgang Weiss will take third place as he comes across the line, and he has done it. Wolfgang Weiss would have done it to win the Raceface.Pro iRacing GT3 Championship, and he has done it. The international driver has come to take the fight to South Africa and will be taking away the win for NJB. Wolfgang Weiss has done it for Season 2. What a performance. He had to fight it out with the likes of Luke Lucchesi, who will go and retain that second place. He's done a fantastic job. He fought as hard as he could. Ryan Ottens comes across in 5th position, with Noah Hendricks chasing him down in 6th as they come across the line. Cameron de Bastos will take 7th position, and Yaz Samai will be hot on the press, taking that 8th place. Yellerman takes 9th as he comes off into the dirt and doing a donut. Why don't you deserve there? Paul Gerber will be coming around in 10th, and Raymond Duggan will come across in 11th position. Werner Swart in 12th, Jeff Hancock's in 13th, Sean Stradham holding that 14th place. Jean-Jans van Rensburg just didn't have enough to get across and ensure that he gets his way through. What a race, what a time, what excitement, and that is what we love to see here at the beautiful Sebring circuit to bring to the close of our Season 2, and all eyes look forward to the one, the only, Wolfgang Weiss eventually getting across the line and taking the South African Championship for Season 2 of the Raceface.Pro iRacing GT3 Sprint Series. That was just monumental, right down to the wire, and an 80-minute race, the first in the series, getting it done and dusted. And I know many drivers are going to be rather thrilled with that monstrous effect. Drivers having to really get that little bit of a climb and stand up towards the fight. So as we take a look at the cars off the starting line, we will be looking to have a chat to a couple of drivers after their monumental effort here tonight. And let's see if we get them into the commentary room. Wolfgang Weiss, I think, is definitely needing to do it. And yes, he is the first one to come in to go and have a chat. And well deserved. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please put your hands together for Wolfgang Weiss, who has taken the championship here in South Africa. The NJB performance team coming in with a fight. Wolfgang, how are you feeling on that one? What a fight. The championship looked like it was slipping out your fingers, and right at the last, you managed to grasp it. Give us your thoughts here.
It's unbelievable. Wow, what a hard race. Yeah, at first, it's an awesome league. Really, it's good. I love it. I do every race, and here in the last race, it's very difficult. I saw the weather, and yeah, I took the wrong setup. That's my fault. Turn 2, Jason, he pushed me off track. So for slow down and damage on the car. Yeah, really difficult. So hard work.
Well, this season has definitely kept you on your toes with Luke Lucchese running that second place. And you guys were going blow for blow throughout the season across 10 rounds by the end of it. And Luke Lucchese really pushed you to the buttons there. Ryan Ottens was also involved. You got in some very close racing. If you have to take a look back in the championship as a whole and pick out your favorite moment, that moment that you could put on a wall and frame it, what will that be?
I think the first race, Daytona, the completely rain race. Yeah, that's Daytona. That's my favorite race. It's really hard. Unbelievable fight against Troy. Yeah, that's my favorite moment.
Absolutely.
And Luke, congratulations. A really good racer. Good fights in the other races. Wow.
Well, it was absolutely enormous. And for the NJ performance team, they've been shouting out, calling out, the support's going out there. I'm sure having that little bit of background support of, hey, listen, you can do this, put your head in it, you got the game here. It was definitely a bit of motivation throughout the season.
Yeah, awesome support also to me. They come into Discord, pushing me and wishing best. So, wow, awesome team, awesome league. I hope Suzuka is going also well, maybe. I don't know.
I think Suzuka is going to be an absolute blazer of note. I've got to ask, though, the difference now having that 80-minute race over the 2 sprint races. Did that change the mindset of what you needed to do, how you needed to approach the race? Is it something that you enjoyed a bit more? Give us a bit of an idea of what you thought of an 80-minute race versus a Heat 1 30 minutes and a Heat 2 30 minutes that we usually see throughout the season. The grand finale really throwing the cat amongst the pigeons at this point.
Yeah, 2 heat race, it's perfect for pushing and fighting. And here in a 80 minutes race, you have to manage your tires, maybe the fuel. So I think the 80-minute is better.
Fair
So
enough.
I start after the pits behind Luke. Yeah, that was behind. And I'm really sure I can't overtake. He's fighting and pushing. So I managed my tires, lost a little bit of time, but I knew at the end I was going better. It was going better. But yeah, there was another driver. He forcing it off track, maybe. Or damage. I don't know. Has he damaged?
There was actually contact, and it was where there was a bit of a turnaround where you actually went past. It was between Jason Coetzee and Luke Lucchese. Well, Wolfgang Weiss, absolutely great stuff. You've taken the championship here at Raceface. You came over to South Africa. You brought the fight in for the NJB team. And what we've seen in the officials, NJB performance has been doing well in the 3 hours. But you managed to show that you can come and take the fight against some of the fastest in South Africa and really show what you can do. Taking the championship and the final championship for the Raceface iRacing GT3 2024 Sprint Series. You've taken that championship. The floor is yours to address all our amazing partners here at Raceface.Pro and all our amazing petrol heads tuning in, being part of the show, cheering on throughout the entire season and getting to see these battles live, left, right, and center.
Thank you. Awesome league. One of the best commentators I ever heard, really. You're doing that very, very well. I love it. And now it's time to look the race. Thank you.
Absolutely great stuff. And we're looking forward to seeing you at Suzuka for that 8-hour endurance race to really throw your hat in the ring. And let's see if you can keep those tires alive, going a little bit longer now that you've had that taste of a longer race. Wolfgang Weiss of NJB Performance, folks. Give him a round of applause. And thank you once again for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next season. Now that you've got the crown, it's time to retain it.
I do. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Absolutely great stuff. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and a big one here in South Africa where we managed to see something happen that's rather exciting. An international driver for the very first time in the iRacing side of things has taken the trophy home. The trophy for iRacing and Raceface.Pro, the crown that is held, that goes away, and it goes to NJB Performance, that goes to Wolfgang Weiss, and a well-deserved fight nonetheless. Absolutely great stuff. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it has been truly an honor. It has been some close, amazing fights throughout the entire championship. It has been that crazy time out there to see the highs, the lows, the exciting times, the side-by-sides, the finishing by 0.1 of a second around Daytona. We have seen it all here with our pros, and we're going to see it all with our pro-ams, putting in a spectacular effort. So don't go anywhere. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, that bell notification icon. That will be coming to you soon, and you'll see all of it going out. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, we head over to the Raceface.Pro PokerBet GT3 Sprint Series, where the drivers are fighting it out for the prize pool of 10,000 Rand on Assetto Corsa Competizione. And that will start at 8:10. Then on a Thursday, 8:10, we go and kick it off with our big one, the Raceface.Pro PokerBet GT3 Championship 15,000 Rand prize pool on the line for that one. Lots of excitement coming into it and lots moving forward. But we also have that 8 hour of Japan. Go over to SimGrid. Go look in the link in the description. Go and sign up with your mates. Sign up with your team. Be a part of the show. And let's see where you're going to end up come the end of that 8 hour endurance race. They'll be coming out to you live and having a huge amount of fun. We also do on the 7th of December at the exact same time for you, a set of Corsa Competizione fans. We have the ACC Spa 24 hour to signal the end of the Raceface Endurance season and also the Raceface season. That'll be the end of it. That'll be Raceface taking a break after quite a bit, but still plenty of racing, lots of fun little things happening. So make sure you join in our Discord to be a part of some of the fun races that many of the drivers are running, and we'll be having a bit of fun. So shout out to all our associate sponsors, Scallywag, Drifting Academy, Red Star Raceway, along with PokerBet, JMD also being part of the show. But also massive shout out has to go towards our admins and the stewards for putting it together, really going and leaning into it, making an exciting series and making it right a fight to the top that has got everyone clamoring for more. And that is to Doe Herber. For many people that don't know, Doe works quite hard in the background trying to do it. He really tries hard. It's even in his team's name to make sure that he can bring all the action out to you and keep it going. And also to Bertus Hugo for giving a little home for us here at Raceface. So absolutely great stuff to see it. Great to have a part of it. Big thank you to all our drivers and teams for participating. But mostly, the most important point and the most important thank you has to go out to you, the petrol heads, the absolute monsters that keep coming back week in and week out, standing on the grandstands, whether it's rain or shine. In the virtual grandstands, you are cheering on your favorite team, your favorite drivers, coming back for more, and we look forward to seeing you back in the grid and joining us next season right here at Raceface.Pro. And for the final time of the Raceface.Pro GT3 iRacing Sprint Series Pro Division for 2024, say it with me, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, everybody. From the THT Productions booth, my name is Stephen Koenig. We'll see you next time. Have a great 2024, and we will see you in 2025. With all the amazing racing that comes to you weekly, we have to give acknowledgement to our sponsors. Without them, this would not be possible here at Raceface.Pro. So starting off with our first sponsor, let's go and take your hats off to PokerBet for all the tournaments, for all the cash gains, daily free rolls, and sports betting. There's no better place to be and win with PokerBet. With it all revved up and you're looking for high speed, whether you're into drag, drift, or even long circuit, Red Star Raceway has got you covered. As we take a look off to all our machinery needs, head over to Oddendorf Machinery Mart. Remember to keep it slick with SA Lube, 20 years of Castrol distribution. Sliding in to keep you on your toes, Scallywag's Drift Academy will keep you right at the top of the pack. And if you're looking for all your streaming needs, head over to Tenvo Tech for all the overlays. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's been an honor having you. We'll see you next time right here from the THT Productions.